Good morning, Dayspring. I wanted to take a few minutes and try to encourage you. A church member said it well when they said, we are currently living in interesting times. This past week has been interesting to say the least. To be honest with you, this past week has been hard. We now live in a world where the news never stops, and lately the only news we've received involves the coronavirus. It's prompted anxiety and panic and nervousness, fear, confusion, and chaos. Our lives have been interrupted and adjustments are having to be made. And if you're anything like me, you don't like interruptions and you don't like making adjustments. But what if we needed this interruption? What if this was God's way of forcing us to adjust? You know, as Christians, I believe this is an incredible opportunity for us to embrace the interruption and willingly adjust. And in doing so, I believe the world around us, those dominated by anxiety and fear and confusion, will see a better way, a more hopeful path through all of this. So I want to share with you 8 ways to respond to the interruption the coronavirus has brought to our world. First off, rejoice. How could I possibly rejoice at a time like this? I'll concede that it is impossible if the object of your joy is something other than the Lord. But Paul, while chained up in prison, says this, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Paul was far from ideal. The circumstances begged for fear. They invited panic. And yet Paul challenges believers to rejoice. My friends, our circumstances are begging for fear. It seems inviting to panic, but we are to rejoice in the Lord. Number 2, love your neighbor as yourself. I'm sure some are wondering if canceling our in-person gatherings was the right call. I get it, I really do. But understand it is precisely this love of neighbor that prompted us to do it. We love the people of Dayspring so much, and I know that many folks would have jeopardized their own health in order to walk through our doors and be with us this morning. That's not a risk we are willing to take. But beyond this morning, we have a responsibility to the best of our ability to not subject our neighbors to any potential sickness. Don't let your bravado or your pride cause you to live careless. Just because your immune system can handle it doesn't mean theirs can. If you have any symptoms whatsoever, even the slightest of ones, avoid others. That may seem like an overreaction, but in all actuality, it's simply love. Number 3, laugh with your family. The other night, I found myself engulfed in the never-ending news cycle surrounding the coronavirus. I was depressed. And then I heard it, an 18-month-old innocent giggle that caused me to swell with joy. I looked up and I noticed my beautiful wife laughing along with our little girl. I sat my phone down and decided to be a dad and a husband instead of a depressed man on Twitter. It was good for my soul and it will be good for yours as well. The next few weeks will likely afford you quality time with your family that you haven't had in a long time. Soak every second up. Get the board games out. Pop the popcorn. Watch the movie. Tell the joke. Swing the swing until your shoulder hurts. Laugh until you cry. Listen with your ears wide open. You won't regret it. Number 4, worship in your home. Your church gathering is going to look different the next few weeks, and that's okay. The thing that has brought me more panic than anything is the lack of sports. I've been twitching for a week, but the truth is it's allowed me more time to pray, more time to read God's word, and the result is that I feel closer to God than I ever have before. Take this time to start a Bible reading plan. Read the church's devotionals. Start praying with and having family devotionals. To be honest, many of us depend on our Sunday morning gatherings to feed our families spiritually, but perhaps this momentary pause from the routine will help us to establish a new routine, the routine of personal time with God. Number 5, be the church. The phrase, church is not a building, church is the people, is a popular thing to say. Something many of us probably have said, but guess what? Now we get to put that into practice. We get to be the church. This is in a lot of ways means loving our neighbor well. Some of you have neighbors who are much more vulnerable to the virus. What if you offered to grab their groceries in an effort to keeping them from getting out? Some of you have neighbors whose daycare shut down or their school shut down, and the parents are anxiously scrambling to figure out what are they going to do because they still have a job to work. What if you offered to watch the kids? One more thing, you don't need that much toilet paper. For every overstocked pantry, there is an understocked one. And there are going to be folks around who are going to be in need, whether it be food or toilet paper. Whatever abundance you have, share it generously with others. Number 6, share Christ. The opportunity to tell the world about Jesus has been delivered to us on a platter. Many are scrambling for hope, and we know his name, so share it. A lost person needs Jesus far more than they need the coronavirus to disappear. The coming weeks will present you with many who are afraid and depressed and hurting and hopeless. Open your mouth and point them to Jesus. Number 7, anticipate. Eventually, Dayspring Baptist Church will swing her doors wide open. And when they do, we look forward to seeing you. I, for one, take for granted the luxury we have to gather together weekly. But these few weeks apart will remind us of how special this place is. It will remind us of the unity and the love that moves up and down these halls week in and week out. My guess is that in a few weeks, the handshakes will be a little firmer and the hugs will be a little tighter. This is a family, and it's going to be so good to be with our family again. And lastly, pray. Today has been deemed a national day of prayer, so by all means pray today. But for every Christian, every day should be a day full of prayer. It forces us to consider our powerlessness, and it rushes us straight to the one who has all power. Later this afternoon, we're going to post a prayer guide, and we would love to challenge you to take the time and work through that prayer guide. I would challenge you at 5 p.m. today to set aside your time with your family, by yourself, and spend some time praying. And lastly, I want you to understand that we love you, that we love you more than you know. And we are certainly living in interesting times, but I believe that these are times where we have the opportunity to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. All throughout history, God has used His people to bring an absurd amount of hope to a hurting world, and I'm confident that He will do it again.